Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joins us now. It's good to have you, sir.
Chris, good to be back with you.
Hey, Bobby, while I have you, you understand the region much better than I do. What is your message to people who are saying Israel is the wrongdoer in the conflict right now, and they need to stop aggression?
You know, I was listening to your interesting conversation with Stephen Cohen about this, and he made this point that that Israel was invaded by a genocidal, openly self-declared genocidal organization that wants to annihilate Israel, doesn't want to negotiate. It believes that there are religious reasons why you cannot have a Jewish state in the Mideast. It was invaded by them in a genocidal incident in which inflicted the worst murder of Jews since the Holocaust. The following day, on October 8th, they were attacked in an act of war by Lebanon, by the Hezbollah in Lebanon, another terrorist group that sworn to the destruction of Israel, the genocidal destruction of Israel, the elimination of Jews from the Mideast. And by the way, there are no Jews in Jordan. There are no Jews in Gaza. There are no Jews in the West Bank and the areas controlled by the PA. There's been a Jewish genocide across the Mideast. But many people have complained since then that Israel's response was untargeted, that they were killing too many civilians. Now Israel's done two things. The attack on Ismail Haniyeh, who's the head of Hamas, which was a highly targeted attack that killed him and one bodyguard, and now a very, very targeted attack against the leaders of a terrorist organization that is at war with Israel. And the people they specifically targeted were the actual terrorists, were the leaders of the terrorist organization. So now people are complaining about that. It's the same people who have been saying Israel should have been more targeted in its response against Hamas. So it's a little bit of a paradox.
It does make you wonder, why is the analysis different when it's the Jews? You know, Trump, we don't talk about his assassination attempts because he's got such a heavy and hot mouth that this is what he asks for. All right, fine. If that's the way you want to reason it, I don't know why they just don't hold that looking at the Middle East, because then you wouldn't be blaming Israel. Let me ask you something. Why should we believe that Donald Trump is going to drain the swamp and that he is going to pick the best people when he promised that the first time and then admitted to you he did exactly what he said he wouldn't, Bobby, which is just listen to the swamp and do what he was told by the people who curry favor for the elites? Why should we believe he'll be any different? He lied the first time.
Well, you know, I don't agree with Donald Trump on a lot of issues, but the issues that I agree with him on, and the issues that we've spent a lot of time talking about, and the issues that he's publicly now endorsed, are one, ending the war, avoiding nuclear war, ending the war in Ukraine immediately, avoiding a nuclear war with Russia, which is the greatest nuclear power on earth. Russia has 1,200 more nuclear weapons than we do. It has better weapons than we do. It's a generation ahead of us in terms of electronic warfare. It's in league with China, which is now the largest industrial nation on earth, has the biggest industrial base when we don't have any. We need to avoid a war. We need to start working toward peace. He's endorsed that, not to me, just to me privately, but publicly. Ending the censorship and the surveillance in this country and around the world. You know, you talked about the reluctance of Democrats, high-level Democrats, to condemn the assassination attempts against Donald Trump. 28% of Democrats, according to a poll that was taken this week, wish that Donald Trump had been killed. That's not a good thing for our country. We should be getting condemnation. And not only that, we should be seeing Democratic condemnation against the censorship that's now taking place in Europe. The European community no longer has free speech, which means it no longer has democracy. Brazil banned Twitter this week, or X this week. Why were there no condemnations from the White House? We're supposed to be promoting democracy around the world, not destroying it. And we see that all the Democratic leaderships, Vice President candidate Walz, Vice President Harris, and Hillary Clinton this week have all come out for censorship, saying that The First Amendment does not protect what they call misinformation and disinformation. Of course, the First Amendment does. That is the fundament of democracy. The First Amendment protects truth, it protects lies, it was written not to protect the easy speech that everybody wants to hear.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.